Hello, everyone. Welcome to Thank You Five. It's our second episode. I'm Kamille Dawkins. I'm the artistic director at Strawdog Theater. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm coming to you from Chicago. Before I introduce you to this excellent panel, I'm going to start with our land acknowledgement. Before we begin today, let us all take a moment to acknowledge the land on which we create our art. Before European invasion, the Chicagoland area was home to the Council of the Three Fires, composed of the Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi nations, as well as the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Sac, Fox, Kickapoo, and Illinois nations. We honor the Native communities of the past and the over 65,000 Native people living in Chicago today. May our work reflect our commitment towards equity, healing, and the celebration of Indigenous people. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Let's go around and introduce ourselves. Let's start with Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric Esteban. I did a few shows with Strawdog years back, and now I live in Burbank, and I am an actor and stand-up comedian.
Jennifer.
My name is Jennifer Grace. I use the she and they series of pronouns. I am zooming in from the land of the Patwin people, of which there are 3 federally recognized tribes, although there are actually many more unrecognized tribes, and that is in Northern California, outside of San Francisco. I am an actor and a writer and a theater maker. I think I like that phrase better than the ones that are a little bit more narrowly defined.
Philip.
Have I been called that? Sorry, I think I'm having some technical difficulties here, so I may...
We'll come back to you then in a second.
Okay, I may log out and come back in.
Chris, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Chris Bozen. I am zooming from Nashville, Tennessee, and relocated here back in 2006 from Encino, California, actually. Kyle Hammond did not give me the homework, or I would have prepared more about our native lands where we are, but I certainly appreciate knowing it from Chicago and things like that. But I did not know it to do that for tonight. I wish I would have.
I'm saying, Kyle, I'm the only brown person on the panel. I didn't even know any of the native land information. I'm just saying, making me look bad.
To be fair, I just want to say like that. For me, this is coming out of being steeped in academia for a while. Otherwise, I would not have had that at the ready. So I certainly did not want to make any of you feel bad, especially my brown friend.
No, not at all. I didn't feel bad. I was just like, "Ooh, wow, Jenny."
I know. All right. It's a new thing to add into introductions.
You are steeped in academia for real.
I really.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that from you either, Jennifer. I mean, it's no pressure. No one has to do it.
It's academic. It's academic influence, but like it's also great practice. I'm really grateful to have come to that practice.
That.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, when Philip is able to join us again, they can introduce themselves. But I'll give a little bit about them. Philip Dawkins is a theater maker as well, a playwright, actor, director, all kinds of things. So there you go. But to start us off today, we are going to be asking the age-old question: what is theater? Oh, Philip was number 1, but no. Now it's Chris. Chris, would you like to start us off?
I can. I will try to, because I've been thinking about it since Kyle said, "Oh, this is going to be the introductory question." I think that it is the interaction that makes something theater, whether that's a one-on-one interaction or shared with a large audience. But I think that the interaction is what makes something theater. I'll go with that.
Oh, Philip, you're back. Do you want to, are you ready? Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. Sorry about that. My computer was going butt crazy. My name is Philip. My pronouns are he, him, his, or anything respectful. I'm coming to y'all from Flagstaff, Arizona, and very excited to join. So thank you very much for having me. It's good to see some familiar faces.
Thank you. Philip, while you're up talking, do you want to answer the question, what is theater?
Oh, no.
Oh, you're on the wrong panel, but no, it's fine.
No, I would say what I love about theater is the unanswerableness of that question. I think I prefer to not know. I think it's the not knowing, which is what's so great about it.
Eric, got any thoughts?
You know, I thought I had an answer for this when I did theater. And then when it was kind of taken away from me, not taken away necessarily, it's not like, I don't want to sound overly dramatic, but when I didn't have it in my life as much, when I moved out here to California, I knew that it was really just that interaction. I mean, even like, you know, the Haunted L and just the friendships that you make and the people that you meet and then the stories that you tell together. I really think that that's theater, whether it's in a train car or in a beautiful theater with, you know, all the bells and whistles and the lights. I think, you know, it's just sharing story with your friends and, you know, and just living that experience to the fullest. Because I mean, some of the best memories I've ever had are the memories I've had in theater.
How about you, Jennifer?
Yeah, I like many theater makers, I have been mulling this question over a lot, certainly since the pandemic shut everything down. And I have long held the belief that theater is it's a social service, it's a community service. It is more than that, it's I really like to think about the root of the word community in its form commune, the idea of communing. Theater is different than film because by nature there is the recipient of the act. The audience is as much a part of the sacred ritual as the performer or performers, as much as the author, as much as the director and the designers. But more recently, I'm starting to really dig on this idea of theater as, I'm not going to get the phrase right, so I'm not even going to try to paraphrase it. But this idea that I think I first heard from Susan Laurie Parks in one of her writings, theater is a way of conjuring spirits, of communing with the spiritual world, communing with our future selves, our past selves, and in that, getting to know each other and ourselves on a deeper level. So I'm really digging on that these days.
Yeah, it reminds me of something I saw the other day that was talking about how acting and theater and all those things is kind of like shaman work, where you're just like embodying this other being, and through doing that you're creating this experience for other people to transform, which I thought was very profound. I never really thought about it in that way.
Yeah,
like a seance.
Yeah, like a seance.
Exactly. And I think it also, you know, it's sort of like thinking about it through that scope widens it to include many you know, group activities that we engage in culturally, like, you know, sports. We just had the big sports ball game, or professional wrestling, or to a certain extent politics, the theatrics of engaging in persona, either witnessing or participating in, and how that affects ourselves and each other, and how we grow from that.
I have been thinking a lot about, like, during those first 2 dark years of the pandemic, what is and isn't theater, which is sort of a question that doesn't interest me, but I about what is and isn't something. But I did to ask myself, what am I doing? And what do I miss? Because we still had movies, and we had great movies, and we had memes, and we had Zooms, and we had all of these things. So what am I missing? And I think what I missed that felt most elemental to me about theater was sharing, and sharing the same time and space. So we can have all of these other things that are great stand-ins, but for me, in order for it to be theater, I think there needs to be a buy-in and participation from everyone involved, including the audience, that we're all wasting the same amount of energy at the same amount of time. And I don't know if it has to be in the same place, but it sure is nice when it is. But there's something lovely and inconvenient about theater, and I think I missed that. I missed being inconvenienced in that way, as opposed to inconvenienced in literally every other way.
It's that agreement between the people on stage and the people in the audience, that we're going to go into this little black box, and we're going to sit here still for 2 hours, and we're going to listen, and we're going to watch this slice of life, or we're going to listen to this story, or we're going to do this. It's that wonderful agreement that for the 2 years in the pandemic, like I had a nervous breakdown at the beginning. I'm like, is this going to be gone for good? Because I had just really discovered doing stand-up comedy, which I really do feel now is like comedy is a form of theater, like, and being live on stage and hearing that, feeling it. Now you don't even have to hear it. Like when you feel it, and you could feel the audiences, and there's no feeling like it in the world. And during the pandemic, asking people to unmute on their Zoom was not the same. It didn't hit the same as doing comedy in real life.
I mean, the audience's performance is as important as yours.
Yes.
And changes yours. And like, I feel the same. I wrote a play that was all stand-up comedy during the pandemic. And I was like, how the hell? Because the first thing you're supposed to do is do it. If you're going to do a stand, the only way to do it is do it, and do it in front of people. And I couldn't. I was like, what do we do? This is so flat. Yeah, that participation, that agreement's a great word. I like
and
that.
Also, I think just to sort of like piggyback on what both Philip and Eric are saying there, the idea that we all go in and we all have an agreement, or that we all abide by the rules. I think that another thing that makes theater great is what happens, the disruption that happens when someone doesn't. And it doesn't, like, that's the only kind of space where, and I know I'm not alone with this. I know so many people who are like, that motherfucker is eating candies. There's some old lady came to the theater and is unwrapping every candy. And in no other circumstance would anyone, have any feelings really about this sweet lady who has probably just a dry throat. But that we are very sort of, we have expectations, and when someone steps outside of what we expect, their engagement with the sacred ritual of being in a darkened room where agreed upon people will speak, and agreed upon people will sit and breathe and laugh at the appropriate times, and otherwise shut their mouths until it's time to put their hands together and apart rapidly at the end. We kind of don't know what to do when people, it's very upsetting when people disrupt the ritual, but it's also what's great about it.
Well, that's I mean, I think that it is alive. It becomes its own living, breathing organism, right?
Part of the show, right? And when it happens in a movie theater, it's not part of the show. No one thinks it is.
Right. Well, that's why I was just sitting here thinking. One of my earliest theater memories was when an uncle took me to see A Christmas Carol in St. Louis, and we had seats very down close. I think probably Kyle has probably heard this story before, but I remember sitting there enthralled by this production, probably the first big scale production I'd ever seen, and near late in the play, and Christmas Future sneaking up on Scrooge, this other child, not with our group, but kept going, behind you, behind you, behind you. And finally Scrooge turned around to the kid and went, And it was alive in that moment. And I remember that to this day, because the only people that experienced that were the people that were there in that room. And I think about even, you know, the video production of Hamilton is it's a separate entity from the actual stage production. It is a different experience to sit and watch that than it is to be in the room where it happens, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
I just want to say out loud.
Sort of,
Just wanted to say out loud for anyone who's watching that whenever we refer to Kyle, Kyle is our producer and tech person who you don't see on screen, but we can see him and we're referring to him.
We should see him sometimes. He can
Yeah, sometimes Kyle should come up here.
Yeah.
No, I remember one of the first times I did Shakespeare, and it was for high school kids in Chicago. And I remember I spoke the line, "Shall I hear more or shall I speak at this?" You know, right before the balcony scene. And it was high school kids. And so you're scared that they're going to, you know, even be vibing to you. They might throw something. You never know, right? And I remember the kid goes, "Yo, speak at this. She like you, man." And I'll never, ever forget that moment, because I was like, I got them. They're into it. They enjoy the play. And it, like you said, there's nothing I'll never be able to duplicate that moment in my life, but it's a moment that will be there and live forever in the memory of those people in that room that agreed to sit there and hear, and then that boy who screamed that line out. But I'll never ever forget it, because it was such a beautiful moment for all of us, because everybody was into it, and they were, you know, so yeah.
Is it, I wonder, maybe I'm wrong, but is it the most ethereal of the arts? Is there anything, I wonder, to me, if that's the thing that's like so exciting to me about it, is that if you're not there, you can describe it up and down and backwards and forwards, but it was a thing, and it was a real thing. But it's not a movie. You can't rent it. It's not,
you can't,
wrestling or whatever.
It's a weird thing.
True of so many. Like, I've never seen the Mona Lisa, not up close, and it's been described to me a million times, and I've seen how many reproductions of it, and neckties with it printed on there. But I'm sure I know if I saw the Mona Lisa up close, there's no way I will have a reaction to it that I could not predict. That could not happen unless I was there and experienced it. So, I mean, I think that just gets to art, right? That just gets to art. And, you know, whether it's a dance, whether it's a ritual, whether it's something like, unless you are participating with it in the moment, even if it was done a long time ago and it just comes to you now, you know, that's something about that makes it art. You have to engage with it on some level. Just hearing about it isn't art. That's true. But the Mona Lisa doesn't exist for a moment in time and then go away. It is still there. It is, you can think of it as a performance that's at the Louvre.
Yeah. Because I think I saw it there, and I was like, okay, cool.
I mean, and I'm not discounting.
I just told you I haven't seen it.
I'm not discounting.
I'm sorry, bro. I'm just saying,
because
there's a lot of stuff. You know, there's shields and stuff to protect it. You know, it's kind of
everyone's crowded around it.
And everybody's crowded, and you're trying to worry about anyway.
That's right. You know, we in theater, you are there as the art is created and then as it is dismantled.
Right.
It ceases to exist as the curtain goes down, or metaphorically or whatever. Figuratively, that's the word I meant. And then doesn't exist until they come on stage again. And that way it's different than the Mona Lisa.
Yeah. I would put music in there as well. You know, a piece of music that is ephemeral, ethereal that way.
A live music, you mean?
Yes. Alive, how it's played and how it's experienced there. I will 100% agree with you with the painting conversation. My favorite painting had been Starry Night, but I had never seen it in person. And I thought it was one thing. And then I saw it in person, and I had no idea the depth, the thickness of the paint that Van Gogh was using until I saw it in person. And it totally changed my perspective and deepened my enjoyment of that piece of art from seeing it, you know, right in front of my eyes versus all the pictures and, like you said, neckties that we had seen, all my life.
Yeah, I know that like anytime I think about like when I had art history class, and then you look at all of these all of these things, these objects, and then I thankfully got invited on a trip with some Europeans that I had met while I was in college. And we went around a tour and saw all these things. And I did not know that you could have such a visceral reaction to paintings and sculptures, but it really does have like goosebumps. And I don't know. So there is like with what all of you were saying, there is like that aspect of you have to interact with it to get the full effect of it. Mm-hmm. Even like with live music, like you were saying, like I was thinking about that the other day about how I think I went to an event where it was the first time this quartet had played since the pandemic. And they played this beautiful music live. And I was sitting there thinking, it is a shame that there are people who have never heard music like live before like this. And they'll never know what it really feels like to be in the room and get this vibration and all of this energy that is completely different than if you're just listening to it with headphones or in your apartment. It's just very, very different. Yeah.
I wonder, I think though about the different kinds of performances in the world, like things that are performances, like fashion is a performance, everybody can buy the same designed outfit and wear it differently and in a different space, and it's performing differently on a different person. It's going to have a different reaction to everybody who encounters it. Cologne and perfume is a different performance on everybody, and I'm wondering if when we encounter these paintings, like, is that painting giving us a performance in that moment, depending on who we're seeing it with, what time of day is it? It really isn't the same Mona Lisa every time, and I don't know. I think there are so many things that really are performances, and we don't even really give them that honor every day. Like, I don't know. The pandemic really made me I would look at like my salt and pepper shakers and like, look what they're doing. Oh my God, it's fascinating what my salt and pepper shakers are doing right now. And think, is this a performance? I don't know, because when you strip it down, really anything can be quite wonderful.
Well, where does the performance originate? Where is it activated? Is it activated by the act of wanting to perform, or is it activated when a person encounters it and sees within the thing, whatever that thing is, a performance? And I think that, probably the answer lies anywhere on that spectrum and many points outside of that spectrum. I have students who are international students lots of times. And I have had several students, Chinese native speakers from China, who have used this phrase to me over and over again, which I love. And apparently it's a common-ish phrase in China, which is there are 1,000 different Hamlets in 1,000 different eyes. So every performance, Philip, if you and I go to see the same thing, or if you and I go to, a fashion show or to see Mona Lisa together, we will not have the same experience. It will not be the same show. And I sort of love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that, much like Eric was saying, I know when I've done Shakespeare here in Nashville, and we do the school performances as well, and sometimes you get those teachers who come in and you hear them before the curtain telling, all right, everybody be silent, we're going to be quiet, we're going to listen to the whole thing, and you're like, no, that there is give and take, there is appropriate reaction, there is appropriate response, respectful response to what's going on, and you need that. Like, it takes both sides.
It makes me think about when I used to perform theater for young audiences, and just like it's just amazing how different groups of children react to things differently based on which school they went to, which teacher is there with them. But there is really nothing like doing a performance for children, because boy, oh boy, do they react honestly. And boy, oh boy, are they so deeply affected by everything that's happened. It's like life or death to them, everything that's going on stage. They really believe it's all real, to the point that they'll continue to react to you as your character when you're in the lobby just walking around.
Mm-hmm. No, the director that Paige Hearn, God rest his soul, he passed away a few years ago, but he was the first director to direct me in Romeo and Juliet, and he said, you know, you're doing this for high school kids. This is going to be the most like the Motley Crue in the original Shakespeare, because they were going to say what they want to say, and they're going to, you know, if they don't like you, if they're not convinced, they're going to tell you. You know, it is the truest form of theater, is that doing theater for young audiences, because they really will, especially young audiences in today's, you know, society, because they don't really, they think everything is Netflix, you know, like my kids. You know, they watch TV and I'm like, y'all don't realize that before, when we watched Voltron when I was a kid, you had to be home at 3 o'clock p.m. or it was gone, and you couldn't watch it until the next time.
You better
you couldn't rewind it.
If you missed Rudolph,
commercials.
if you missed Rudolph, you missed it for the whole year.
You couldn't do anything. You had to watch it. You know,
that's right. Rudolph came on. It was like gone 2 times. Oh well, okay, right.
You were lucky if you missed it. You better hope that they reran that stuff, because if they didn't rerun
probably not.
You missed it forever.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, and then and kids nowadays, they don't realize that talking back to the screen and, you know, saying stuff like, you know, it's different. And when they talk back to you now, it's all like I felt even back then that they get it. They're getting it. They're into it. And that response is something that we all need, because
and
it's part of the whole experience.
For me as an adult, whether it be acting, directing, writing, or going and seeing a show, those are the moments now I'm trying to find as an adult. the ones I try to create or find or see, I want that. And it's, you know, they're fleeting. It seems like, you know, it seems like everybody's trying to figure out, how do we get that engagement? How do we get that connection? The level of care and how much it means to those kids in those moments. How do we find that as adults in the work we're seeing and doing?
Can I ask a question to you guys? I'd like some advice on a particular. This is kind of leading me into a thought I've been having about the state of theater and theater watching these days, and I'm curious to hear how other people land on this issue. You know, there was a time, and we've talked quite a bit at this point about etiquette and, you know, expectations for behavior around theater, and, you know, reverence or respect or whatever you want to call it, of engaging with a show. And, you know, maybe it's because I'm around college students now, and I see quite a few shows in a college setting. You know, I am seeing a lot of people in the theater, and I do mean college students. You know, I'm not going to be ageist about it, but these are people who seem to be college students, engaging with the show while also device is with them. And, you know, that I have always, and I know that at this point I am an old lady, and I'm fine with that. But I have a sort of perhaps an outdated idea of how you behave in the theater. I'm really actively fighting against being the person who says, put your phone down. That's distracting to me. And I'm having talks with other theater makers about this, and whether, you know, this is a thing that is changing, and we just need to embrace the fact that people are going to theater and they are enjoying it the way they want to, as opposed to, you know, trying to impose possibly outdated expectations or, you know, rules about how to behave in the theater. I'm curious what other people think about that.
Could I want to quick, because there's a big thing when you're in stand-up where you don't, like, bigger stand-ups will pull people's phones before you get to the audience, so that people can't film their material and then put it on whatever. You know, I'm not a big comedian. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, y'all had to introduce me before you knew who I was, right? You don't know who I am. So for me, when in a show, in a stand-up show, the more phones that come out at the end of my show, the better I did. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of like, please tag me in your videos, but that's kind of where I'm at with that. But as far as in a theater show, it's weird, but it's almost the same thing. If a young kid wants to chronicle this experience through their phone, that's their way of kind of saying, I want to remember this. I want to, I have to see it through this phone and this device and experience it so that I can record it and remember it when I don't remember it in my head anymore. And that's even just me when I'm in a concert and I decide to pull out my phone. I'm like, no, you saw Pearl Jam live. You didn't need a phone, but it's still, it's part of our culture now. I mean, and they literally designed it so that it would fit in your hand and be perfectly in your hand. Like my 7-year-old and 8-year-old, my daughter showed me how to find mommy on the phone. When mommy's on the phone, okay, here. And she clicked, and I was like, oh, here it is. And she's like, here's the directions to mommy. And she hit the thing and GPS went right to mom. And, I think it's part of their lives now. It really kind of is. I don't know if that's unfortunate or it's fortunate. I think there's good and bad to all of it. But I feel like now, especially with young kids, they're experiencing their memories and the stuff that they want to remember and the stuff that they're enjoying through their phone.
Is that what you're talking about, Jennifer? Are you talking about like videoing actual theatrical moments, or are you talking about like engage? Like I know when we go see shows, it's the traditional like playbill, with the pick, and here I am. Is that what you're talking about? Or are you talking about the video side?
I'm talking about the range. Really, I'm talking about a large range, and because I've seen a lot of it. I've seen audience members who are watching a show, enjoying the show, videoing part of the show. I've also seen people watching a show while texting their friends or, scrolling through TikTok, but also watching the show. And, there is a part of me that's like, put your fucking phone down. But then there's the other part of me that is very like, get slightly political here for a second. I am aware that I am a white lady of a certain age and that I am not here to police the universe. I am not here to tell other people how to enjoy anything. And it's an internal struggle that I have, but I also I'm wrestling with the fact that I think it's the way of the future. And I don't know that it's worth me getting so upset to be one person,
I wind up getting upset. I know that's
it.
all I can say for me. I wind up getting up. Kyle knows I wind up because I've been in this situation and over the last several years. I mean, and it's kind of like I do think that I'm more myself anyway. It kind of like give people a minute, right? That light comes on, you see it, stays on a while. After a while, then hey, it's that's for like if they're texting or something. I've also been in shows where I've watched and someone was videoing and I thought, well, they're getting a little clip. It was a musical, getting a little clip of it. But then they stood there and they did the whole first 2 songs. And finally I said, look, I'm not here to watch, through your phone that's up here in my sight line. And I finally went and told an usher and they dealt with it. So I think I think that's part of that communal agreement that is made. You can do what you want until it interferes on my enjoyment of what's going on.
But there's so much that we agree not to acknowledge or that we pretend we don't see in the theater. We all pretend that there's a wall there that isn't there. We all pretend we don't see the lighting instruments. We all pretend there's not somebody rubbing elbows with me right now. Why can't we extend that? Why can't that move outward so that we all come to the theater and suspend our disbelief and just pretend all of this other super distracting stuff isn't happening. Because when I hear like, oh, this person's phone is distracting me, that to me lives in the same world as like, I mean, not really, but it can veer over into the same world as that ASL interpreter is distracting me. Well, why? Everything else isn't distracting you because you've decided that it isn't distracting you. So can't we just decide that it's not distracting us? Because this, you know, and I agree with Jenny. I think, you know, this is where it's going. So if we know that, let's just be smart about it and incorporate it and write plays that cater to what our audiences are bringing. Again, it's that agreement, right? And if the rules, if society's rules are changing, then we need to redraft the agreement, you know? Like we need to accommodate and make smart theater. Like even at the beginning of the sports ball halftime, you know, when Rihanna sang Shine Bright Like a Diamond, they put up on the Jumbotron, everybody turn on your flashlight. And they used everybody in the audience as a tech person to put diamonds in the sky. That's just, it's such a low effort, high impact thing.
And that looks so pretty, dude, too.
It looks so pretty. And all everybody did was turn on the instrument that they had in their pocket. So my thing is, if we know this is where it's going, no matter how we feel about it, let's accommodate it and let's be smart about it. And let's make really smart theater that invites and welcomes and excites people who would like to view two devices at the same time.
100%. But then the control is back in the hands of the theater creators, the artists, the designers. I would say that the Rihanna situation is, they, like you said, inviting that. They're in control of inviting that participation. You know,
I think we can do the same, you know. I also think, I mean, let's be real, like theater is theater with a capital T and like the RE at the end of it, I think is in a place that like Catholicism is. Like we don't have the room. We're bleeding converts. We need to do anything we can to let as many people in, or it's going to be dead any minute. So if we're like, you're the right kind of person for the outside, you're not, then, you know, bye.
Yeah, but again, I think it's just me. We went to a production of Hamilton here a year or two ago in Nashville, and the woman next to me, I gave her the whole first act to sing along out loud to the whole show, right? That's not what I paid for to go see. And so finally the second act, I turned and I just looked at her until she finally looked at me, and I said, I paid to hear them, not you. If you want to do a sing-along production of it, which some theaters have done, and say, hey, come sing along, great, thumbs up, go for it. But again, I mean, I'm supposed to sit there and let her sing along the entire time?
I mean, I guess it's just like, I mean, I went to a production of Porgy and Bess where the woman next to me sang the entire show and I was charmed. I mean, I was just like, she was getting her whole life. So I think it just, I think it's about what are we, because if I've gone to many concerts where I sang the entire show and no one could hear me because it's so loud. And the person next to me is singing the entire show, you know? So we go to these events and we go to these things that aren't theater where we do behave like that. And we do have our lighters up in the air and we are drinking beer in the middle of it. And we are, so if the few stalwart things that are hanging on aren't going to accommodate somebody like maybe eating food, drinking a beer and having their phone out, then some modes of entertainment are going to survive and some are not. And, you know, for whatever it is, I mean, I love your idea. There are many theater companies that are doing specific shows. You know, there's some theaters that are doing, I know Mixed Blood has like, or I don't know if they're still doing this, but like the back couple rows are tech friendly rows of every theater. Yeah. So that if you need your device, you can have it, but you know that sitting in the back couple rows, so you are not upsetting or maybe spoiling the experience of somebody who isn't plussed by having that. And I'm one of them. I am a one. I want to see one screen at a time. I want to do one thing. That's how I'm an old white lady as well. Like I do not want other people doing that, but I understand that other people do. And I think that's a wonderful like first step in that direction. Those of you who would like to sit in the back and your screens won't bother the people behind you, go for it. Everybody else who doesn't care for that experience, sit in the front kind of thing. I think we just need to be smarter about it because it is where things are going.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead. Sorry,
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say, I think that's pretty much the key, is that it's about everyone agreeing to like some, even though like it's about like changing what the rules are, it's good at the same time to still have some kind of structure and some kind of rules, because I usually don't get, like when I go to a theater, if they don't, I'm a person where if someone comes into the room and says, we're not supposed to do this, and then someone does it, I'm going to get really frustrated. Because I'm like, didn't they just come at the beginning and just
Didn't
tell
y'all
you
hear that
to
announcement in
turn
the
your phone
beginning?
off? Yeah.
Yes.
If they didn't say it, then I'm like, okay, whatever, you don't know. This might be your first time to a show. Who cares? You know, but like, it's usually just like the flagrant breaking of the rules that we all agree to that gets me upset. But I could totally see the directions of things changing and being for the better, because yeah, we do have to like find ways to open up the doors to people who want different kinds of experiences.
And
I am, however, gonna round up this conversation because we do have questions now to answer in our chat. I've got our first question for us from Allie. She says, what would you say if you could go back and talk to baby theater kid you? Jennifer.
No one is going to be interested in you trying to figure out what you think other people want you to be. The most interesting, hireable, and dynamic version of yourself is the one that you secretly want to be. So just be that. You don't have to be anybody else. You don't have to try to figure out what people want from you. What do you want from yourself?
I like that.
Me too.
I think I would have saved myself a lot of really bad auditions for, you know, trying to stoop over and pretend to be an old lady. Like, you know, just people can read through bullshit. And I think it's when, especially when you're a young artist who hasn't maybe found your identity yet, it seems so attractive to try to figure out like, what is the thing that everybody wants and be that. Well, someone else is already being that, but no one else is being whatever secret, beautiful thing you have here. Be that.
That's beautiful. Chris?
I would say there's no perfect path. There's no right path. The right path is the whatever path you make of it. You know, there's not going to be. I'm one of those who struggles with making choices. Right, going into Baskin and Robbins can be a nightmare experience for me to try to choose from among the 31 flavors. So in this particular field, goodness, you know, what are you doing? And so I would just say there is no right or perfect answer. It's got to be the route that you take, and that's going to be very different from the route that anyone else takes.
Well, those are my dogs trying to answer, but mine is simple, really. Well, if my dogs would stop barking, they won't. No, it would be enjoy the journey, because so much of my young theater life was, okay, well, when am I going to get to this? Or when am I going to get to that? Or when am I going to get to, when I'm going to do work with this theater? Or when I'm going to get to work with this thing or this thing or this thing, instead of just enjoying the fact that I was part of a beautiful theater community and got to work with some of the most talented, cool people in the world, and, you know, and build friendships that are lasting 20 years. You know, that's it. Just enjoy the journey, because if you really want to do this, there's going to be ups and downs and ins and outs and all the other shits and giggles you want to think about. But, you know, it's not all going to be happily ever after, and it's not all going to be, you know, superstar. But enjoy it, because it's fun. looking back on it now, it's like, I mean, gosh, I wouldn't change a thing, except for these goddamn dogs barking.
We've got another question here from Carm. Carm wants to know, if you had unlimited resources, what piece of theater would you create? That's a thinker.
Whoa.
If I had unlimited resources, that would be easy for me to know what I would do. Because there's a building in Chicago called the Jose Rizal Center. It's one of the first and one of the it's the only real community center for Filipino Americans in Chicago, and it's been around for a long time, and a lot of communities are fighting over it. So if I had unlimited resources, I would buy that building and I would give it to the community, and I would make it a an art center for kids like me growing up in Chicago. So that's what I would do for sure.
Has anyone ever
And I'm going to do that when I have unlimited money, because I'm going to have that one day.
Has anyone ever done an adaptation of Jose Rizal's writing?
Yeah, no, we've been, because now I live in California, and this is the second or the first largest Filipino community. So it's so different here, and I want to bring that and the community that's here and the storytelling and all the other stuff. I want to bring that home to Chicago, and I know that I could do that with the Rizal Center if I own that building. So that's what I would do if I had unlimited resources.
That's a cool building.
Yeah, it's such a cool building, and it's a perfect location too. My goodness, it's right there. My God,
is that Irving? It's
on Irving and Irving Park and Clark, right by Live Bait Theater. It's like, oh my God, it's so perfect. And it's a huge space with the auditorium and everything with the dance. Oh my God, come on! I'll tell you right now, I'll be the Brown David Schwimmer and buy that building.
Yes.
For me, it's it's the same thing that I guess that I've kind of always dabbled in or tried to connect with. If I had unlimited resources, I would work with veterans to tell their immediate stories. I guess a little more along of a documentary style of work. I'm just fascinated by those real stories and the catharsis that their stories provide for them, as well as for those who hear them and experience them. And I just think that that's what I would do. If I had unlimited resources, it would just be an ongoing evolution of all of our working with veterans and telling their stories and things.
I think I've always had this strange want. I don't even know if you could call this theater necessarily, but it would be like this giant thing where you'd walk into different rooms for different experiences, where you'd have like rooms that would all need, it's kind of like when you go to that, I forget the name of that museum, and they have all these different like wonder rooms, except it would be far more interactive, and it would all end in a room where you'd go in and you would just break things. And I would want to make it so that I always thought of it where it's like there's two different sections to everything, where it's like you have a way where you can break things and touch things and draw on things and mess them up. And then also making sure that with enough resources, and making sure that it's also like extremely accessible. So no matter what disabilities you might have, you'd also be able to like break without hurting yourself and go into this room, even though there's like flashing lights, maybe there's goggles that you wear and all kinds of things, so that everyone can get into it. Because I always think about how theater is like for me at least, a form of catharsis, to be able to go through these wide range of emotions. And it would kind of just be a way for people to be like, hey, just release all of your impulses. Like, go mad in this place. But that would be quite a feat to pull off. So I would need, every bit of resources to do that.
if I had unlimited resources, I probably wouldn't make a production. If it was truly unlimited resources, I would make this a country where you could live and be a working artist. I would set up an actual National Endowment of the Arts that really worked, and where we could actually get making sure that every working artist is getting healthcare and getting benefits and putting toward their retirement, because the system in this country is immoral and impossible, and I would fix that. Yeah. I think I've told the
Philip
story.
Dawkins 2024. Let's go.
God, no. If I had unlimited resources, that's the most important part, right? You know, no, I would fix the system. I do a play.
That's such a great answer, Philip, and and I love it. And every time I work with an artist who is from outside of the States, it's something that I just feel so much envy for, the way that their art is supported by their home country. Not of course, but you know, many, especially our European friends. I'm gonna offer a slightly contrarian viewpoint, although I do think it's a companion piece to what Philip is saying, and that is, you know, I feel like part of the reason that that you know, people keep saying that theater is dying is because it has a reputation for being really elitist, and none of the theater that I personally have ever loved has benefited from unlimited resources. In fact, I think that my favorite challenge is creating something beautiful out of nothing. So is there a piece of theater that I would make with unlimited resources? No, I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea of being able to problem solve and to have every, you know, potential challenge solved for you. I don't think that that necessarily makes soulful art. I grew up really poor, so I take issue with, you know, theater as being, you know, a sort of rich person's hobby. Certainly not how I grew up. It's not where I am now. You know, I have a child to feed. I had $24 in my checking account for 3 weeks. And God damn it, I'm not going to stop making art. It's not possible for me to do that. And so, yes, I wish I could live. I could, you know, get healthcare by creating art, but I don't need it to make my art. I don't really want it either.
Yeah, there is that element of like challenge that like pushes you to reach into like that human experience. Yeah.
All of us, you know, I'm not going to single myself out. We all come out of, you know, on some level, the storefront theater scene, right? And that, I think, is what sets us apart from theater artists anywhere else. And I'm not saying that other people don't have beautiful, low budget theater scenes, but there is a scrappiness of coming out of the storefront theater scene that has given me my aesthetic, has given me my ability to just figure out how to make it, even if you don't have a single one of the ingredients that you need to make it. And I love that. I wouldn't change that for anything.
There's a certain grit that you have as an artist once you've come up in the Chicago storefront theater community. It's just different, you know, like, you really, like, being out here in LA, you really feel the difference of the community but not even that, the toughness and there's like I said, there's a different level of grit that comes from a certain, just that Chicago, man, like passing out flyers in the snow, you know, and
it's winter 9 months out of the year,
you know, posting the posters and can I put this poster in your window, and all these different, you know, all that stuff that all of us did, you know, and even like when you were talking about it, like I remember being so inspired by action movie, by Defiant,
action movie,
and how they were, you know, it was like cardboard cars, and there was no budget for an action movie, but it inspired a whole generation of theater artists to try and do that again with whatever story they wanted to tell. So I totally agree with you.
Once a month, at least.
What?
Like, I think about action movie at least once a month.
At least I think weekly, and then I read Offerman's book again, and there's like a chapter on it. I'm like, oh my god, action movie. It's such an inspiration, and just like you said, that's a perfect description of problem solving with other artists and putting on a beautiful show with all your multitasking problem solving. It's beautiful.
I have fond memories of being around Strawdog folk back when they were at their old 3829 space, and it would rain during a show, and so it meant everyone scattering to put buckets in random places, getting a potted plant and being like, well, that's on the set now as a scenic choice because the roof is leaking. I guess when you have all the resources.
I remember doing Angels in America in at the old bailiwick space, and this was when the Hypocrites were doing, we were fancy when we got to bailiwick, so this was our big time, really. And the rats would come in and eat our props, and then we'd have to build new ones. And it happened show after show after show. And, you know, what are you going to do? We didn't have any choice but to, you know, make nice with the rats.
Yep.
I mean, I guess that, I don't know, the attractiveness of being with the quote unquote misfits and the non-represented and all of that stuff goes together when you didn't have it, you know, when we didn't have anything, or I don't know, older actors that I've talked to, they're always like, you know, they used to travel on wagons and carts and they would bury us, you know, by the road, right? Like that was the attraction, the gypsy nature of not having that permanence, I guess. And maybe it's still in our blood in some way.
It's also sort of Stockholm syndrome. I mean, right? Like it's 100% that. Like, we have grown to love it because it's the only thing available to us until we reach a certain echelon. And I think that's not totally healthy. I mean, it's good for us to have been like, oh yes, we love the rats, but like, we shouldn't have to, you know.
No, I mean, and just to clarify, I love the memory of being young enough to stay up all night and tear down the goddamn set myself. I'm not doing that anymore. My back is bad and I have a child that I have to get up in the morning. Right. So, you know, the love that I feel is, you know, 95% nostalgia for a time that I don't live in anymore, and I can't. I don't want to.
Well, part of me feels like it's almost like there's like a little bit of a rite of passage that you have to go through. It's like, yeah, we're all supposed to, you know, get to the place where, yeah, we just have all the things that we need, not all the things that we need, but, you know, most of the things that we need to get stuff done. There's stuff that you don't want to have to worry about. But yeah, there's just like a level when you're starting out and you're working in a scrappier environment where you have to push your imagination and use all that energy and stamina you have to like really see how far you can go. Not necessarily pushing yourself to the point where you're like, this isn't right, but, you know.
Right. I think there's a difference between pushing your creativity to come up with creative solutions to awesome opportunities and challenges, as opposed to like enduring hardship to be able to get to the point to do that. That to me is the thing a lot of us have kind of, and we sort of glorify it and talk about the starving artists and everything. I just don't think anybody should have to go through that ever. No, at no point.
Yeah, I wish starving artists didn't exist. I don't like the phrase. It's horrible.
It's gross.
And unfortunately, like you said, most of the starving artists are because they can't afford healthcare. And that is really one of the main things, that if this country had healthcare, it would kind of support their artists, because at least, you know, I mean, that's time and health are the only two things that those are the two real luxuries in life, right? So I don't know.
Before the pandemic, I lived in Canada for 2 years, and of course surrounded myself with artists, and I was not a citizen, so I was just, you know, there, and it was just like being surrounded by porn Like everybody just had this, I was just like, what? Like you don't have a job and you're okay? You're doing fine. You're between gigs and you're not totally stressed out. I mean, of course they were stressed out and there were hardships and everything. You know, it's not some magical fairyland, but there were just protections in place to take care of artists. And it really was like I died and gone to some magical place. And I thought it can be better. Not perfect, but it can be better.
Got another question for us from Carm. It's, what's the biggest surprise you've ever had on or around a stage?
I'll go because I guess I'm the answer first person. The biggest surprise, and this isn't a flex, this is straight up a surprise. I just filmed my first comedy special in Chicago last week and a half ago in Sunday. Kyle was there. Kyle wasn't there. He was there for my flight delay, and we went to Green Mill, and that was also wonderful. If you want to talk about music and live music experiences, but the surprise of my life really was because I was also co-produced the show, and it just a lot of things were going on, and I was juggling a lot of things. But I did my first hour of stand-up comedy, and in the 30 years I've been doing on the stage, I never ever got a standing ovation by myself, and I got my first standing ovation. So that was the biggest surprise of my life, and it took 30 years to do. So that was pretty cool. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm still tripping about it. I still feel like it didn't happen. So I keep looking at the pictures because I'm like, did that really happen? Did that shit really?
See, that's why you want people recording, so you can just relive that moment.
That's why I wanted people to pull out their phones. I'm just making sure to take pictures. Because I couldn't pull my phone out because I would have done that. I would have. If I was in my, I didn't think too damn. I should have pulled my phone out. That would have been a great shot. Anyway. But yeah, that's the biggest surprise. And it came 2 weeks ago. So that was pretty cool.
The biggest surprise I ever had as an audience member, I think about it all the time. And I'm not going to say the show just because it gives away a big thing. And in case this guy's still performing, I don't want to give it away. Otherwise, it would totally promote this person. But it's a solo show. And it was kind of, to me, I thought it was kind of like your sexy go-go boy kind of, it was touring through the bailiwick. I was kind of along for the ride, but not blah, blah, blah. And then at the end of the show, he took his hair off. And he'd been like mostly naked for the whole, he'd been like basically naked for the whole show. And I was like, okay, whatever, and then he was wearing the best toupee that I have ever seen in my life. And my face fell on the floor. It was so vulnerable. Suddenly he was naked. And he aged up 20 years when he took his toupee off. And it was the most vulnerable I've ever seen anybody. I didn't know it was coming. I think I gasped. I questioned I probably called my mom. It was so dire and so vulnerable. And I think about it all the time. I'm talking about low effort, high impact. I just think in my theater all the time, I think, how can I take the toupee off? What is the little thing that is so honest that it's going to wreck your audience? Yes. And it was just, the rest of the show I didn't think was so honest. And in that moment, I was like, whoa, I have been let in. And it was a lot. I think about it all the time. In my head, I'm always referencing, where can I take the toupee off?
All right.
We're all chasing the toupee.
That was also probably 17 years ago. So it really, it stuck with me.
Who knows what he's taking off now? Maybe
he didn't have anything else to take off.
He's popping out an eyeball?
These days, he's right. Taking out his teeth. I'm here for it. Front row. Take it off.
Well, if nobody else has any other answers to that question. No? All right. Well, then, thank you all for joining me this evening. This was an excellent panel. I'm going to go around and ask if there's anything that you want to plug. First, I'll ask, as I thank you for joining us, Eric, is there anything you would like to plug for us?
Well, just look out for my comedy special from 4x3 Comedy. It's going to be called Miscellaneous Brown. It's the nickname that I got from Chicago theater, and now it's my title of my first comedy special. So look out for that. It's going to be, I don't know where it's going to be. I know they filmed it, and it's probably going to be on YouTube or Instagram. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be on HBO. Let's put good juju out there. I don't know.
You heard it here first. It's going to be on HBO.
Don't say it. Affirm it. Confirm it. I don't know. I mean,
put
I
it
hope
out there
so.
so it happens.
Next Tuesday, it's premiering on HBO.
Yeah.
So everybody go.
That's all
check that out.
You guys.
Thank you, Eric. Jennifer, anything to plug for us?
So I have a series that I have created, a series of shorts. I started thinking during the pandemic about what it means to work, what it means for me as an artist, as a mother, as a widow. What do I consider work, and how do I work? And really thinking about, I started writing, essentially, these are love letters that I write to people who have different types of jobs, all kinds of jobs. And so I have 7 series so far. It's called This Is Working. You can find it on Instagram, on YouTube, on the Tickety Talks. There's also a fan page on Facebook. And what I do is I use raw. I interview folks, not my son, but this is my son. I interview real people about their jobs, and I use that audio. I then recreate the content from the interview using miniatures and toys. My toys. His toys.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Thank you, Jenny. Chris, anything you'd like to plug?
I think for me, it's a theater organization that's doing work here in Nashville that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, because it's a children's theater. Most of their work is written by and performed by kids and their founder, Corey and Lamel. It's called The Theater Bug. They just do amazing work, and my child is involved with them now. So as a parent, that's where I'm spending a lot of my time. And if you check them out at thetheaterbug.org, and they've got original plays coming up, and I'm just thrilled to be associated with what they're doing. And if we can spread the word about what they do, that's great.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Philip, anything you'd like to plug?
Sure. I have an audio play on audible.com right now called The Comedians, that is a romantic comedy spanning the entirety of a relationship, and both people in the romance are stand-up comedians, so you experience the whole romance through stand-up comedy. And that's available on audible.com, The Comedians by Philip Dawkins, and give it some love.
Awesome. And
I got 2 credits on my account. I'm about to use one right now.
Hey, you can use the other one to download any audiobook title that I've narrated. I'll get a cut of those royalties. So.
Thank you all for joining us. I'd love to give a thanks to Office Hours Global and DVE Store, and of course, Strawdog Theater, who is hosting this. I'm the artistic director there. Always got a plug for Strawdog. If you ever want to make a donation to Strawdog, you can go to strawdog.org. You can learn about what we're up to on our website. You can become a recurring donor and help support our free theater model. And you should look out in March and pretty much every month this year for pop-up events. Just look out for those and follow us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram and everywhere else. Thank you all so much for joining us today. This was so much fun, and hope you have a great night.
Thank you, 5.
Thank you, 5.
Thank you so much. It was so awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.